Welcome to Speak Up International with Rita Burke and Elton Brown. Today we have Monique Nugent, who is a doctor. She is going to read an excerpt from her book, Prescriptions for Admission. With that, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Elton, for having me. I want to start by reading the letter to the reader that I wrote in the beginning. Dear reader, I once overheard two patients talking in their shared room about various frustrations with their experience in the hospital. One patient openly expressed that she felt overwhelmed, saying, I don't know who to talk to or what to do. It's like I'm getting pulled along and I don't know where I'm going to end up. Her roommate, who was trying to be supportive, suggested that she speak to a more senior physician. Have you asked to talk to the chief resident? On Grey's Anatomy, they always get the chief resident to put everyone in line. Being chief resident at the time, I couldn't help but be flattered by her assumptions of my power, but as her physician, my heart broke to hear that a TV drama was her reference for how to navigate a hospital stay. Often when patients interact with the behemoth that is U.S. healthcare, they find it too confusing, too opaque, and too cumbersome for them to feel fully in control. The most overwhelming place of all for patients tends to be the hospital. Coming to the hospital means you're already sick, in pain, and unable to do much on your own. Patients can feel like things move at warp speed in the hospital and feel as if they're meeting 10 people who are demanding 20 different things and giving 30 different opinions. But when it comes time for discharge, even though people really want to go home, they often feel as if they have more questions than answers. In addition to a bunch of new medications and doctor's appointments. Managing all of these adjustments at home can be overwhelming, just as in the hospital itself. The whole thing can feel like a carnival ride. I've built my career around hospitals. I am a hospitalist, an internist who specializes in caring for acutely hospitalized people. And hospitals are kind of my comfort zone. I love the pace of a hospital, the teamwork between doctors and nurses, and the bonds I build with specialists. I know that amazing things can happen in hospitals and have seen people's lives saved by astute clinicians over and over. But I've also seen how easily patients and families can get lost in the same place I'm most comfortable, a place that is meant for care and to support them. When I decided to write this book, I did so with all of the overwhelmed patients in mind. This book is meant to sort of be a traveler's guide to your acute hospitalization. In addition to furnishing you with a list of critical information that you should know about yourself, things to pack, questions to ask, this book will also give you tips on what to do when you're feeling stuck and will also help you learn how to not get stuck in the first place. What you will not find in this book are treatment plans or diagnostic ramblings, as your individual care is best left to the clinicians who are seeing you in person. Rather, I want you to read this book and come away with your game plan for each day of the hospital, your list of needs and questions, and your mechanisms for communicating with the care team and advocating for yourself. Even though you have this book, there still may be times that you feel as if you're being pulled along in the hospital. But I hope that you will flip back through the pages and know that you are not alone and make a game plan to break that pattern. Being sick is never easy. During my training, I had an attending physician say, patients are going to get worse until they start to get better. It's our job to make sure they make it to the better part. That wisdom has always stuck with me because I know that when you're sick, the better part seems far away. For me, I think of every day as a chance to find or redefine what the better part is. Because trust me, you'll make it there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monique Nugent. The voice you have just heard reading from her book, Prescription for Admission, is that of Dr. Monique Nugent, who's a practicing hospitalist and physician in the Boston area. She has dedicated her career to improving the care of hospitalized patients. Dr. Nugent has practiced in hospital settings across the country, She is also an author, as you just heard her reading from her book. On Speak Up International, we say, rather than tell our guest story, we'd like them to tell the story themselves. And so today I welcome you to Speak Up International, Dr. Nugent, to tell your story.
Thank you so much for having me, Rita and Elton.
You are
So
what you
that's a big ask. My whole
yes, it
story,
certainly
that's a lot.
is. Just like they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do in the form of questions. So the first question that I'm going to ask you, good doctor,
Yeah.
is you describe hospitals as both essential and overwhelming.
Yeah.
So when did you realize that we had these two opposing truths uh, that patients have to realize?
I would say that once I got over my own overwhelm, so practicing in healthcare is overwhelming itself for lots of reasons. And when you're a brand new physician, you just graduated medical school, you making your way through residency, you're in that overwhelm yourself. So you're not really noticing everybody else, and things kind of slow down when you get your feet underneath you. And I will say that it wasn't until about my end of my second year of residency, middle of my third year, when I was thinking, oh my goodness, am I going to do a fellowship? Am I going to be a cardiologist? Am I going to be a gastroenterologist? Am I going to stay a general internist? What am I going to do? It really wasn't until I was thinking about my own next steps that I started questioning how I fit into that and the practice as a whole, and really noticing that, wow, people are overwhelmed, people are lost. The system has lots of ways it can be better for everybody, more equitable, more comfortable, all of those things. And so my love for the hospital actually and the patients in it actually drove me to go into hospital medicine, do a non-clinical fellowship, and get my time to have my eyes more open to the experience of patients and their families and caregivers in the hospital.
Yes, I hear that loud and clear, and you seem to be rather comfortable in hospital settings, even though you said they're overwhelming. So talk to us, share with our listeners what led you into healthcare career in the first place.
Yeah, so I actually come from a family of carers, I would say, nurturers. My mom and her sisters are nurses. I have an older cousin who is also a physician. I have aunts and uncles who are teachers, people who are really invested in making sure that other people succeed, other people are cared for really well in their lives. And also being a child of immigrants, being really in a community that looks inward and holds each other up, looks out for each other in so many different ways. I grew up in this really warm environment. I grew up in a place where I knew I was taken care of, and I knew it was my job to take care of someone else too. And so I like science. I'm, still kind of a science nerd. My kids get bored of me and my husband watching documentaries and telling them about like stars and lions and things like that. So, how do you meld science and caring for others? And then also get a job. Like you have to, and then grow up, get a job, right? And so, I went into medicine because it kind of really did meld all of those things. And I have very luckily found that it also gives you a lot of space to grow. It is a career that you can take in different forms as you grow yourself in different ways.
Okay, so as a doctor, daughter, mother, friend, what shaped you the most when you think about hospitalization, and what patients really need to know in those moments?
The cases that always stick with me, two types of cases. One is personally daddies and daughters. I'm still very much a daddy's girl, and I have a soft spot for daughters and their parents, but I get a little verklempt with daddies and daughters in the hospital. And the second type of patients, more academically, that kind of stick with me are patients who they and their families have a very hard time simultaneously navigating the healthcare system and upholding their wishes. It is not a very easy thing. And I think we often think of honoring someone's wishes really only around the end of life. And that's not the case at all. How somebody wants to be treated, what their goals are for their care, for their life, what they find acceptable as far as pain, disability, things like that. It's a continuum throughout a person's existence. And the cases that really shaped me professionally are cases where families have really struggled with that, struggled with how do we get through this machine and how do we honor what's happening and what the patient, our loved one, wants done for them at all stages of their care.
I suspect that when you're providing, or if your goal is to provide holistic care, those are factors that must be taken into consideration, what people want and how they want it done. I want us to talk about a term that you mentioned in your bio, and that is Commonwealth Fund Fellow. Help us understand what that means.
Yes. So the Commonwealth Fund is a nonprofit organization based here in the United States that does a lot of work around healthcare and healthcare equity. They have many different facets. And one of the things that they do is they fund a fellowship at the Harvard School of Public Health, where physicians can be trained in public health, that you get your master's of public health at the end of it, and a lot of leadership training as well, and really focus on learning about equity in healthcare. Now, when people hear the word equity, nowadays, at least down here in the States, people sometimes turn off and think like, oh, that's a political term. That's a DEI term. And that's not the case at all. Making sure that something is equitable, meaning that you get the things you need for the care you need, right? It's not that you get the same thing as everyone else, right? Healthcare, medicine in its own practice has to be equitable. If we say everyone who comes to this hospital gets antibiotics, it doesn't matter what's happening, you get antibiotics, but you come in with a heart attack, an antibiotic is not going to help that, right? By definition, we give you the care you need at the time so you can be cared for appropriately, right? So equity is that. It's giving people the things they need in their unique environment, in their unique experiences to continue on doing whatever they need to do, right? And so it isn't until we really look at that and bake that into healthcare that healthcare outcomes and experiences will get better for everyone, right? So yeah, I think unfortunately it's become one of those terms where people think like, oh, you're just talking about Black people. Oh, you're just talking about gay people. No, I need to be able to care for my patients whose first language is not English, right? Could be any language from the world. Could be French, could be Portuguese, I need to care for my patients who have hearing disabilities. How can you consent to something if you can't hear what I'm saying? Right? That's not equitable. I need to be able to care for my patients who have physical disabilities. I need to be able to care for my patients who have larger bodies. I need to be able to care for my patients in the way they need their care. And really, it is about making sure that medicine delivers on the promise of itself. And until we bake that into our care and our models of healthcare in this country, and I would say every country, right? Because we all live now so mixed together all the time. Until we really do that, we're always going to struggle with poor outcomes. Because guess what? You may think you're a cookie cutter person, but there's something unique about you, your experience and your needs. And you want us to be able to meet you there and give you what you need to be successful.
Prescription for admission is the title of your book. You know, you invite patients to take charge. Do not, lay there and
And
just let the hospital,
caregivers.
right? And just
Patients and
let the
caregivers.
hospital, like will you around.
Yeah.
I'm using that in quote. They're just willing. And you're like, where am I going? And they're not really answering you. They're talking as if you're not even there. What do you tell individuals who are in pain or they're just exhausted by this whole thing that they have to go through when they go to the hospital? What is the one thing that you can tell them, hopefully, that will plug them into a wall so that they're able to recharge?
The number one thing that I tell people is really not high tech in any way, shape, or form, but does depend on long-term investment. And that is don't do it alone. Please don't go to the hospital if you can avoid it, or stay in the hospital if you can avoid it alone, right? I know there will be times and experiences where people, slip and fall in a parking lot and they're wheeled off in an ambulance. But still call somebody, let somebody know where you're going, what's happening if you can. Uh, it is really hard, really, really hard to, particularly in the beginning, synthesize all of this while you are uncomfortable. So what I say is, let's say your accountant called you, Elton, and said, hey, the government, the IRS wants you to come in to talk about your tax return. And depending on what this conversation is, you can either go home and life will be fine, or they're going to, fine you and lock you up and take away all your riches, right? And you're going there. And on the way, you start getting a headache and you start getting all this stomach pain and maybe you start vomiting. You get out the car, someone runs over your foot. You open the door, you hit yourself with the door. You get in the elevator, and now you're kind of overwhelmed with claustrophobia. Would you try to reschedule that appointment? Most likely. Yes, you're not on your best, right? Now, imagine that you have no choice but to show up. And that's what the patient experience is. You are sick, you are uncomfortable, you are in pain, you are panicked, and you have no choice. The questions I'm going to ask you about your health and what happened, how you got here, what medications you're taking, have you had surgeries, who's your doctor? Those are no less high stakes than the IRS asking you, did you make $1 million? Did you buy a boat? Are you laundering money? Those type of questions, right? It's no less high stakes. The only difference is you can't reschedule with me. You're coming to see me because all those things happened. And so the reason why I always tell people have a care partner, it doesn't have to be 24/7, but you need another set of eyes or ears. You need someone else to kind of fill in the blanks for me as a physician and fill in the blanks for you as a patient. That like when you were vomiting and uncomfortable, actually, they really did hang some IV fluids. Or like, wow, you haven't gotten the IV fluids the doctor has said. We have got to advocate for that, right? That extra set of eyes and ears will go far in your hospital stay. And that's why I also spent a lot of time really speaking to caregivers. Family caregivers are so, so vital. Um, as the population ages here in the United States, we already have millions of people. I think the last number I saw was something like 64 million people who in some way are acting as family caregivers, right? And so they are the set of eyes and ears. They are the extra pair of hands. They are the logistics planner. And so I spent a lot of time reaching out to caregivers and educating caregivers in the same way as I do with patients directly.
Wow, you certainly are an advocate. And tell us, in your experience around hospitals, What are some of the challenges, let's say three challenges that you notice in patients experience?
So, one that patients often experience is the challenge in understanding what's happening that day. What is the plan for the day? You know, am I going to have that procedure? Am I going to see the cardiologist? And I understand why, because it's a very nebulous schedule in hospitals. If you make an appointment to see the cardiologist as an outpatient, you show up at 11:30, right? Show up at the time that they told you to come, and the person's already there. Whereas if I tell you you're going to see the cardiologist today, I don't know when they will come. I don't know if they'll come before or after clinic. I don't know if there'll be an emergency in the emergency department that they need to see, in the cath lab. I have no idea what their day looks like. And so they're going to come when they come. If you're going to get a procedure, I don't know when that's going to be. The surgeon may very well plan for 11:30, but if another case goes long, or if a trauma comes in, or if a stroke code comes, something that, your case might be bumped from the operating room, from the CT scanner, from the MRI scanner. And it's this nebulousness of the scheduling in hospitals and the way things go that, in addition to the lack of communication, really makes people confused as to what's happening that day, right? And I have a great tip for it. Again, very low technology tip. Paper and pencil. Write it down and check it off. It sounds really kind of simple, um, but it will help you organize. It will also help you get your questions together. The second thing that I see that really frustrates families and patients is really planning for the next step for discharge. Like, it's almost immediately that people want to leave the hospital when, like, the second they start feeling better, the big crisis is over. Can I get out of here? Can I get out of here? Right? And there could be lots of reasons why the answer is not today, maybe tomorrow. Maybe home is no longer a safe place to be. Maybe you need a little bit more care. Maybe you're not strong enough to be at home. Things I've seen, like somebody's caregiver is injured, and we are now looking for a place for them to go, right? Or maybe home is the place you're going to go, but now you need a walker. Now you need a hospital bed. Oh, who's going to deliver my medication? And that logistical planning is 100% necessary for your success to not be rehospitalized. And people kind of don't know really how to take charge of that. They may gloss over it. Oh yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Or they may not really realize what they're asking for, or what their insurance allows them to get. That's another big thing here. People will say, oh yeah, my insurance covers that. And then we actually find out maybe it doesn't. So you might have to stay in the hospital to get that MRI in the hospital because you can't get it as an outpatient. And so that is the other thing that really holds people up is, how am I going to leave here and be successful? Because you can leave. But if you don't have all the parts necessary to keep you moving through your care, you're going to come right back.
You have a podcast, correct?
I have a podcast. Yes.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Me too. And because I can't tell if I'm good at branding or I lack imagination, it is also named Prescription for Admission. And my podcast is really geared towards the caregiver experience. People now, I'm realizing, people in my generation, millennials, Gen Xers, we are now the new caregivers, and navigating a healthcare system very different from that our parents navigated with their parents, and making sure that people have the tools to do that well. And I think that part is something that my colleagues in my generation are not really speaking about just yet. I have a lot of friends who are caregivers, but it's not a thing that everyone is talking about. We're all kind of suffering in a silo and not fully understanding that this is an experience that, if we are blessed to have our parents, and our aunts and uncles and whoever it may be in our life who's special to us as they get older, if we're so blessed for them to stay with us, that we do turn into caregivers, it is quite an experience that needs support. And I try to help caregivers. And any conversation I have with patients is always applicable to caregivers, and vice versa. Any conversation I have with caregivers is applicable to patients. But I really want to talk to patients and caregivers about this really kind of unique experience in your healthcare journey, which is a hospital stay.
So, what else would you be doing if you weren't in the healthcare field?
Oh man, this is a great question. Um, I I really would love to learn how to write good fiction. Um, I am always amazed at the worlds and the characters that a good writer of fiction can create. Before I met my husband, I never read like fantasy novels. I kind of always thought that was like for nerds, like, oh, those weird nerdy guys over there, you know? Um, but when you actually read some of these stories, they build these worlds that span generations and hundreds of years, and they have folklore and they have language. And um, I would really love to learn how to write good fiction and create something like that for others, for myself and for others. But also, I do that while baking. I will also spend my time in the kitchen cooking and baking, and I'm much more a cook than a baker. But I would love to learn how to make beautiful and delicious desserts as well.
Mm-hmm. See, now you've hit an area that I like to talk about, and that's food. And
Yes,
so now I know that you love to cook and you can do a little baking. So before this uh, podcast comes to an end, name your favorite food that you love to cook, and let's make it a dessert.
oh, that let's make it a dessert. Okay, I have to pick something that is because I actually have more of a savory tooth than I do a sweet tooth.
Okay, that's okay.
So like for me, um, just like a good plate of white rice and stew peas,
Mm.
um, is just perfect and comfort food to me. I don't know if you can. I actually one time had someone serve me rice and peas ice cream, and that was an abomination, and that should not have been done. And I was personally offended as a West Indian myself. I was like, "Don't do that, sir. Never give me rice and peas ice cream again." you know. But yeah, I like if it has that umami savoriness to it, I'll just I'll just eat. Like not, I have like a ending with sweets, but something is like just peppery and just seasoned right. I'll just eat all day.
Wow. Okay, so this um, podcast is quickly coming to an end. So, Arita, anything you'd like to say? One last question.
Yes, I certainly do have a question. Rice and peas ice cream
I know.
sounds repulsive enough
It
for
was
me.
not good. I'm gonna be very honest. It was not.
Nevertheless, is there anything that you wanted to say to our audience that we have not asked you?
Yes. Outside of grab a book, listen to my podcast, uh, I always encourage my listeners to spend some time with your loved ones and have the most uncomfortable conversation you can have in life, which is, hey, mom, hey, dad, hey, auntie, what would you want done for you if you got sick? How would you want me to support you if you couldn't make decisions for yourself? And the reason why I encourage this conversation is because a few things will happen. You'll either find someone who has already really prepared. That person tends to either work in healthcare or have had enough experiences with healthcare to understand that they need to have this in place to protect themselves. Or you'll find your family members will brush it off. They'll say things like, just unplug me, oh, leave me alone. You know what I want. Which is the time for you to say, no, I don't. No, I don't. Like, let's have this conversation. It's uncomfortable, um, but it's really, really important. And the third thing that will happen is they'll put a wall up, right? They may say, oh, no, no, we don't talk about those things. We don't talk about those things, which is now your invitation to bring it up again and bring it up again and bring it up again, to wear down that discomfort. Because I guarantee you, if you don't know what they want and how to support them, and you have someone like me, I'm coming to you to make a decision in a situation in the hospital, it's because very few good, fun decisions are left. And you never want to be in that position. And for the family members on the other end who are going to have this conversation, who your daughter is going to come and say, hey, I heard this really smart doctor, Dr. Nugent, on this great podcast, and she told me I should come and talk to you about this while we eat rice and peas ice cream.
Ew.
All right. If you're that person who they're going to come to and say, hey, we should have this conversation, it is not an uncomfortable conversation. It is a gift. You are giving your family the gift of releasing them from feeling uncertainty, releasing them from feeling responsibility and guilt. The family members I've seen who've struggled the most are the family members for who things are unclear and they say, I don't know if I did the right thing. But if it's written down, if you've had the conversation, and it's not about you doing the right thing, it's about you respecting what dad has said, you honoring dad's voice, you getting dad the things that he wants. You are giving your children, your loved ones, the gift of your voice. And that really is extremely, extremely important.
Wow. Thank you so much, good doctor, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to have a conversation with us on Speak Up International. We got to talk about your personal story, where you come from, your values, your techniques, the way that you go about distributing your skills, medical skills we're talking about. And also we got to talk a little bit about your podcast, which sounds extremely important, where you have medical professionals and doctors to, I guess, talk about the day-to-day activities of handling those responsibilities. So thank you so much for being with us today. And Rita, if you'd like to make if you have any concluding remarks.
I certainly want to say thank you to Dr. Monique Nugent, who has graced us and Speak Up International with her presence, with her wit, and with her drive to advocate on behalf of people who are hospitalized. I believe that it's really critical, as you said, that people are not alone in their hospital stay, because I believe they need to use their energies to heal.
And that's true. 100%.
And it's always good, it's always best to have someone there to be doing the FIGHT, and I don't know why they should really have to fight, but that's the reality of being in healthcare settings. So I thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you guys. This has been a ton of fun. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Speak Up International. If you wish to contact our guest, Dr. Monique Nugent, please be prepared to submit your name, your email address, and the reason why you wish to contact Dr. Nugent at www.drmoniquenugent.com. Dr. Nugent has other social media accounts you can use to connect to her that will be listed in the description section on Spotify and other social media platforms. Your voice has the power to inspire, influence, and ignite change. We love to hear your story. We invite you to connect to us by sending your message that includes your name, company or organization name, the valuable service you offer to your community, and your email address to info@speakuppodcast.ca. You can also find our new video podcast channel at bit.ly/speakup podcast video. You can find our audio podcast at www.speakuppodcast.ca. Our logo has the woman with her finger pointing up, mouth open, speaking up. As soon as the website passes inspection, you will be able to gain access to the audio and video versions of each of the podcasts just using the following link, www.speakuppodcast.ca. As a member of our Patreon group, you will gain access to a range of exciting benefits. We are working on providing you with early access to new episodes, an opportunity to suggest topics or guests for future episodes. In fact, you will have the freedom to network. Your contribution of $2 or $5 monthly will not only help sustain the continuity of the podcast, but also allow us to enhance the overall listening experience for all of our dedicated followers. Help us help you. www.patreon.com/speakupinternational. Don't miss our next episode. Join us again on Speak Up International, where we aim to inspire, to inform, educate, and entertain you.